All right, so we're gonna look at the beginning. So this is brachot, which means blessings. As I said last week, the idea of like there being a beginning or end of Talmud is a little arbitrary, but this is where people start when they start learning. Like any Talmud class basically begins here. And this is what is considered, like with a daf yomi cycle, if you're studying on a schedule, this is the beginning of the new cycle. It does start on page 2. There is no brachot 1. Has to do with like the folio of the old-fashioned books, and page 1 would be the title or the cover or whatever. Like each sheaf of paper is its own page. So there's that. And then every page, every daf, like I said, when we say page in Talmud, it means like the physical sheaf. So there's an A and a B, front and back. And so what is a page of Talmud is actually, several pages really of English once you really extrapolate it all, and then the front and the back and all of that. So, this is the like preface. This is not a translation of anything, this first paragraph here. Okay. The beginning of the tractate Brachot, the first tractate in the first of the 6 orders of Mishnah, opens with a discussion of the recitation of the Shema. As the recitation of the Shema encompasses the acceptance of the yoke of heaven and of the mitzvot, and as such, forms the basis for all subsequent teachings. The Mishnah opens with the laws regarding the appropriate time to recite the Shema. Me'ematai korin et Shema ba'aravin. So you'll see here the translation. The bold is the direct, what's actually there in the Hebrew, and the not bold is the sort of filling it in so that it makes sense, because Hebrew is such a dense language. Oh, and also it's not Hebrew, it's Aramaic here. Oh no, I guess this is a Mishnah, so it must be Hebrew, but it's a different layer of Hebrew than I'm used to. So these nuns for plurals, normally we would have a mem. But I want to, even though I know the Hebrew is not maybe super helpful for you, there are certain terms that become very like they're key words or formulaic words or things like that I think it's helpful to still hear a little bit. So like I said, me'ematai korin et Shema ba'aravin, from when, that is, from what time, does one recite the Shema in the evening? Like you might recognize from our Shabbat blessings, ma'ariv aravim, same word, that's the evening. Misha'a shehakohanim nichnasim ve'echol bir trumantam, from the time that the priests enter to partake of their truma. Now remember, this is being written at least 30 years, up to 150 years after the temple is destroyed. There's no priests entering to take truma, which is one of the types of sacrifice. So when the priest can go and eat the holy leftovers. But that's not actually a super helpful time period here. And from when, so then the next question is implied. So the first question is, how early in the evening does it still count for the evening Shema? And we got that answer. And then the second question isn't really given, but the implied question is, and then how late is it into the evening that you can still say the evening Shema? Ad sof ha'ashmura harishona divrei Rabbi Eliezer. Okay. So until the end of the first watch, which again is like a time period that maybe wasn't still actually utilized, but they would know conceptually what that meant. Yes, Terry, was that a question?
Yeah, it was. So for the priests, would it be at dusk? Like, what would be there?
Well, yeah. So it has to do with, so the way they calculated hours back then, right? They didn't have like a 12-hour day necessarily, or 24-hour
Right.
day. It had to do with like the where the sun in the sky was. So yes, I believe it would be around dusk. They might explain that further.
And
Let's wait on.
isn't
Sorry,
there something about stars when you can see 3 stars, or
that's
is that?
Havdalah.
Oh, okay. All right. That's later.
That's later, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Rabbi.
So this would not be, the Shema doesn't rely on that kind of sundown because it's really more about like when is your work day over
Okay.
and you're getting ready to go to bed, as opposed to like Shabbat has to be about really like the sun is down. So the 3
Oh, thank
stars
you.
is
Okay.
different.
I
So
also
this
have a
is this.
question.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Debbie.
So if this was written after the destruction of the temple, I mean, and it was soon after the destruction of the temple, so it is
It's still in
almost,
living memory.
it's almost current,
Uh-huh.
the priest schedule, and it certainly, the hope would be there that it would be back, or you know, but are we quoting the priest's time for the Shema almost like the Shema is substituting for what's happening, what was and will happen in the temple, or was it happening? Is there a relationship there?
Yes. So I mean, part of it is that the Shema is commanded in the Torah, sort of. I mean, the Torah says, you shall speak of these words when you lie down and when you rise up, when you're at home and when you're on your way. And that's sort of like vague, you could interpret that to mean like carry the words of Torah broadly with you always and like live your life according to Jewish values. But then here we're getting into like, no, it means literally say these words first thing when you wake up in the morning and last thing before you go to bed at night. But sometimes it's hard to actually structure your day around that if you don't know like what else might happen in your evening. You want to make sure you say it before it's too late. So we start getting into that. So the structuring of prayer around like in place of temple worship does start to come in a big way in this period. I definitely think there is a relationship there with the Shema and how we're deciding, right? Like how early it can be said is dependent on when the priest would still be like doing their final sacrifice of the evening or whatever, or not even their sacrifice, when they are allowed to go and eat the holy leftovers because the sacrifices of the day are over. So there's still like that. But then especially a couple pages in, still in Brachot, but like after we're done with the Shema, they go on to the Amidah, and that is very connected directly to the times of sacrifice and like they do some mental gymnastics to be like, oh, but like the patriarchs said these blessings too, but like it is very much in place of to like put the bookmark in where the temple worship was. So Rebbe Eliezer says you can see you can say the Shema until the end of first watch. So presumably until the time when people generally go to sleep, a couple hours after dark probably. But the rabbis Chachamim, like the wise people, we're not even really sure who this refers to. The Chachamim say until midnight, ad chatzot. Rabban Gamliel, who is my favorite rabbi to hate on in the Bible. He's my rabbinic frenemy. We'll get into some of that probably why, if we get that far. Rabban Gamliel Omer, ad sheya'aleh amud hashachar. So until dawn. So again, you see like his answer is just until dawn. The Koren Steinsaltz's commentary here are like helping you fill out the very terseness, just saying that like where the Torah says when you lie down, b'shachtacha, it means the entire time you are lying down. So at any point, if you like wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, I forgot to say the Shema, you can still say it.
So if you fell asleep in your recliner.
Exactly, yeah. Okay. Ma'aseh means like, so there's a story here. Let's like an introduction. Okay, but it happened. Vanav mi beit ha-mishteh omru lo karinu et shma. So Rabban Gamliel's sons, here it just literally says, okay, well, it happened that his sons were out late at a party, a wedding hall, mishteh, but this is actually a drinking hall, but okay. We can assume they were drinking for a celebration. And they said to him, we did not recite the Shema. We forgot to say it. Oh, that's another thing that's kind of cool about the Shema is that when it said like throughout this section, it uses the verb kore, which means like to recite or to read or to call out. So as opposed to like the word for pray or even speak or sing, like we might use for some of the other blessings we see later on, this is like a direct, like you're saying the words from the Torah, these words of Shema, like very basic. So it's the reciting, the reading, the calling out. Amar lahem, Rabban Gamliel said to his sons, Im lo Allah amud hashachar chayavin atem likrot. Well, dawn has not arrived yet, so you should still say it. Velo zo bilavad amru. Ele kol ma she'amru chachamim ad chatzot. So he said, like, even though it might not always be that not everybody says this about when you can say it, but the sages said you can say it until midnight, but he's like, but don't worry about that. They're not the only people who get to decide this. Mitzvatan ad sheya'ale amud hashachar. So he's insisting that the mitzvah may be performed until dawn. Oh, here, okay, so there, kolma, so that like, that even the sages who said until midnight, they really meant until dawn. I love when rabbis do things like that.